Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, it's going to be a killer show, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. President Trump soon is landing in California. Governor Gavin Newsom, as he calls him, he'll be greeting him, and Trump said, I don't know why he's there. I didn't invite him. So I think with that as a background, Mr. Producer, if we can get a live line into that, if it happens, we'll see what is said. We'll listen in, ladies and gentlemen, if we can get that done. I think we can. Well, we have a vote, I think, later tonight on the confirmation of Pete Hegseth. And there's 4 Republicans in play. I'm wrong about that. There's 2 Republicans who have announced they will not, Collins and Murkowski. Sacco and Vanzetti of the Republican Party. And in doing so, they are undermining American national security, of course, because we need him in there right now as defense secretary. So they don't use the advise and consent provision in the Constitution to advise and consent. They use that provision in order to delay, sabotage, and undermine, even when it comes to a Secretary of Defense. And they came up with a phony letter this last time, or affidavit, if you will, and it was so preposterous, nobody's buying it, except those who want to. Who are the other 2, Mark? Mitch McConnell, we're still not clear what he's going to do. The suggestion earlier was that he would vote for Hegseth. And then, of course, we have this guy, Thom Tillis, out of North Carolina. Apparently, he's not sure. He's not sure. Well, we shall see what Thom Tillis does, because apparently it's in his hands as to whether or not Pete Hegseth is confirmed or not. I don't know what his problem is, Thom Tillis, but that's, again, something we will watch for the next 3 hours. We'll keep a very close eye. There's a lot going on today and this evening, so we will be watching all of it as carefully as we can. There was a story that kind of broke yesterday. I didn't have time to get to it because, again, there was so much going on. And that's these 2 former Politico reporters, Mark Caputo and Tara Palmieri, now of Puck. Excuse you? Puck, P-U-C-K. The Palmieri's podcast. And they said, look, we were told by Politico we're not to write about the laptop. Excuse me? No, you're not around the Hunter laptop. By the way, this whole cover-up on the Hunter laptop, it's not just Politico, it's the Washington Post, the New York Times, the whole kit and caboodle. But I thought it'd be worthwhile if you heard actually what these two reporters said, because it further underscores that we do not have a free press when it comes to the corporate platform press. Politico was started many years ago to create a new platform. It was started by a few the Washington Compost reporters, and it is as bad as the Washington Compost. The bad habits remain the bad habits. So let's check this out. These two reporters. Cut 16, go.
Another great example when Politico did that terrible, ill-fated headline. 51 intelligence agents or former intelligence agents say that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation.
Right.
Or bore the hallmarks of disinformation. Turns out that story was closer to disinformation because the Hunter Biden laptop appeared to be true.
But then Facebook also pulled all the stories down.
All right, we're going to pull this back right away. President Trump's coming to the cameras, and as soon as he speaks, we want to go. Here we go.
A little while ago, we have that in very good shape. We have the congressman in charge and Michael Watley, and we're going to do a lot of work. We have the Army Corps of Engineers working as they are here, and I think you're going to see some very big progress. They left them high and dry, and now we're going to be taking a little tour with some of the people from the area. I appreciate the governor coming out and meeting me, Kevin. Thank you very much, and we'll be talking a little bit. We want to get it fixed. We want to get the problem fixed. And there'll be some ways, but it's like you got hit by a bomb, right?
Yeah.
Like you got hit by a bomb. Would you like to say something?
Most importantly, thank you for being here. It means a great deal to all of us, and not just the folks in Palisades, the folks in Altadena that were devastated. We're going to need your support. We're going to need your help. You were there for us during COVID. I don't forget that, and I have all the expectations that we'll be able to work together to get this speedy recovery.
We will. We got to get it done. Tremendous numbers of lives have been affected. A lot of real estate's been affected. Nobody's ever probably seen anything like this. You can almost say since the Second World War, when you think of it. I mean, nothing like this has happened. And we're going to get it fixed, so we'll get it permanently fixed, so it can't happen again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit later, and we'll get it worked out, okay?
I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Both of you have disagreed a lot over the past week over what has happened in this state. How do you plan to
We got to get it finished. We're looking to get something completed. And the way you get it completed is to work together. It's the governor of the state. And we're going to get it completed. They're going to need a lot of federal help. Unless you don't need any, which would be okay.
We're going to need a lot of federal help.
So we're going to take care of things. Okay?
You know, I have to comment here. This guy gets all dressed up, this idiot governor, all dresses up for the French Laundry, whatever the hell that is, and then he meets the President of the United States and he's wearing jeans. Right, Mr. Producer? The guy's got no class. They're done. No class whatsoever. That's the way it goes, I suppose. Really grotesque. Anyway, let's start at the top again now, if we may, with this issue of Politico telling its two reporters not to cover the Hunter laptop. You know this, folks? This is going on all over the place, going on all the time, rather. Go.
Another great example when Politico did that terrible, ill-fated headline. 51 intelligence agents or former intelligence agents say that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation.
Right.
Or bore the hallmarks of disinformation. Turns out that story was closer to disinformation because the Hunter Biden laptop appeared to be true.
But then Facebook also pulled all stories down about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I think Twitter did at the same time, too.
Correct. Yeah. They punished the New York Post. It didn't help. I mean, Politico, my former employer, and I knew at the time, didn't do itself any favors. I was covering Biden at the time, and I remember coming to my editor and saying, hey, we need to write about the Hunter Biden laptop. And I was told this came from on high at Politico. Don't write about the laptop. Don't talk about the laptop. Don't tweet about the laptop. And the only thing Politico wound up writing was that piece that called it disinformation, which charitably could be called misinformation at the least.
Yeah, I mean, I had a hard time. You know, I wrote some pretty serious reporting on Hunter Biden, which actually ended up getting him prosecuted, the story on the gun.
Yeah, and I remember you consulted with me because you did the original report on the gun. And you came to me like, how do I write about this? I'm like, honestly, I don't know.
Because
because
it was hard to get it done.
You figured it out. Yeah.
I spent three months on it. I went to the laptop shop and I did all of the reporting in Delaware, and I did all of that. But yeah, it had to be like it had to be 100% nailed down. I had everything, the police reports, I'm a solid reporter, but I do wonder if it would have been published a little quicker, if it was a different type of story. Well,
since we're spilling tea about our former employer, I still have a copy of the story on my external hard drive. In 2019, a rival presidential Democratic campaign of Joe Biden's gave to me the tax lien, the Oppo research, the tax lien on Hunter Biden for the period of time that he worked at Burisma. And I wrote what would have been a classic story saying, the former vice president's son was slapped with a big tax lien for the period of time that he worked for this controversial Ukrainian oil concern or natural gas concern, which is haunting his father on the campaign trail. That story was killed by the editors. And no explanation for that either.
Interesting.
So that general experience,
All right, stop there. That's 2 stories they killed, right, Mr. Producer? 2. It's incredible. Politico. What a joke. Go ahead.
Things, but as a reporter, having witnessed the way in which the two candidates
we just get called like the terrible mainstream media.
Yep.
It's like you don't understand the process there.
We also don't understand the dumb decision of cowardly editors that are made.
The man above us when we're trying to do our jobs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We're just looking for scoops, man.
The big bias is toward a good story.
You hear about this with Politico, and it's the same mindset throughout the left-wing media. This was going on and worse at CNN and MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. That's why they're rising up at the Washington Post. They're rising up at the New York Times. The Post especially, they don't like the idea that Bezos told them, hey, we need some balance in this thing. How dare you? We're not going to endorse any candidate. That would include Kamala Harris. They got some resignations. The guy that owns the LA Times out there, the same damn thing. The newsrooms are controlled by these leftist kooks. New York Times is a very bad newspaper in this regard. Very, very bad newspaper. And so a combination of things has happened now in the media framework. There's a revolution going on of sorts. That doesn't mean that they're going to roll over and play dead. But they're not making any money. CNN has to lay people off, even though the sugar daddy, the multinational corporation that owns them, can do whatever it wants to. But they've just laid off a bunch of people. I believe they're moving Jim Acosta, who is a non-reporter, big-mouth leftist, to midnight or something. I'm going to resign. Why do you have to threaten to resign? Just resign. Just leave and see if anybody gives a you-know-what. They got fake Jake Tapper there. They got Wolf Blitz there. They've got what a bunch of boring, monotonous Hamas mouthpieces they have there. And then you look at MSNBC. MSNBC is effectively... Well, what can we call this? MSNBC is effectively like BLM, but white. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Producer? Sort of a white BLM. There's sort of a white lives matter, if you will. That's what they kind of are over there. Well, they have a BLM type here and there, but I mean, mostly it's a WLM type. I mean, look at the main lineup. You've got... at night especially. Rachel Maddow, last time I checked, she's white. Lawrence O'Donnell, white. What else you got there? I don't even track it that closely. You got, who else? You get that whole lineup. Not many blacks, right? Not many minorities at all. I mean, at least CNN at some point had a Hamas-supporting host, right? No, that was MSNBC. They had a Hamas-supporting host. It was actually out of the closet. But if you look what's happening to these media organizations, putting aside the sugar daddies that own them, they are hurting, and they are hurting badly. The Washington Post has really minimal subscribers. They've lost enormous percentage of subscribers. You see, even liberals, I don't mean radical Marxist leftists, I mean even sort of mainstream old-time liberals, they still don't want to be lied to. I mean, they're knee-jerk in many ways, but they don't want to be lied to. They don't want to read, newspapers that don't tell them the truth. Here you have a cover-up of several stories at Politico. Politico should go out of business. It's not in the news business. A cover-up. We've seen the same thing with the other media when it came to the laptop, the New York Times. Anyway, I think it's good that these two reporters have come forward. They may be liberal, they may be Democrat, but at least they have some ounce of integrity. And that's the way it used to be. We always knew the media were liberal 40, 50, 60 years ago. But these hosts and these news reporters tried to kind of put it aside. They tried. But today it's out of the closet. They hired Democrats. They hired Democrat staffers. You got Psaki there. You got all kinds of people there. I mean, out of the Clinton administration, Obama administration, they populate the whole damn thing. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. You know, President Trump is a remarkable man, truly is. He's in California this evening. He's got energy like anybody's ever seen in my life, despite what he's been through, including assassination attempts. But before he goes to California, he goes to North Carolina, and he promises we're going to send the Army Corps of Engineers in there. We're going to do something about this, as well as funds and so forth. He says it's unbelievable. It's been sitting here like this for months. FEMA, he's right. FEMA's become a burdensome, bloated bureaucracy. And what he wants to do is, he still wants to help, but he wants to block grant the funds to the states, which will know what to do about it. And I think that is such a brilliant idea. It really is. It's very, very important. Then Reagan administration at the Department of Education many, many years ago, when I was a principal deputy assistant secretary on my way to becoming chief of staff at Justice. I'm just explaining a little context. We took the funds because we couldn't eliminate the department. The Republicans blocked us in the Senate. The Republicans. And so what we did is we took the funds from the elementary and secondary education funds, and we block granted them, and we sent it to the states, for the states to give it to the cities, the towns, the counties, and so forth as they saw fit, with very general, minimal guidelines. You know, they had to spend it on elementary and secondary education, but we felt we didn't know exactly what they should or shouldn't do, and I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. You either get rid of FEMA or you turn it into a check writing operation, and you block grant the funds and you send them to North Carolina. In the case of California, the amount of money is massive. You have to force the local and state governments to do the right thing, or you can't send them $100 billion. I'll be back. The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
All right, let's get down to it. President Trump, the Asheville airport. He went beyond the Asheville airport, actually. He went in and met many of the people. He's a very, very compassionate man. You know, the wife of the volunteer firefighter in Butler, Pennsylvania, she said yesterday that Donald Trump called her every day for about 2 weeks after her husband was murdered. Every day. And remember, he did a GoFundMe or the equivalent. Actually, I think he just did it. Raised significant amounts of money. He just felt so horrible about what happened to that man. And when he says, and when he looks in North Carolina and says, look at this. Look at this mess. It's still here. FEMA. What's the point of FEMA? It's not working. It's not functioning. What does he say? We got to fix this. We got to change this. Cut 2, Mr. Producer. Go.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area, and they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster.
And that's all so true. And here he has the guts to say it. FEMA is a disaster. Here's even more. Look how he thinks. He thinks like a real can-do executive, businessman. And the bureaucrats are not used to this. These government agencies are not used to it. FEMA just figures that they're immune from criticism because of the mission. Well, the mission isn't getting done. And so you have these leaders, great leaders, like Trump, like DeSantis, who know it and want to do something about it. And Trump just does not let things sit. He tackles them to the ground. It's an amazing thing. You're witnessing history here. He did this in the first term, but this term's like nothing we've ever seen. Nothing we've ever seen. Cut 3, go.
I'm pleased to announce that under our leadership, the federal government will be surging housing solutions to the state that go beyond mere temporary hotel stays that ended up being very short-term. The government wouldn't do it any longer, which is ridiculous. We'll marshal all available resources and bring back potable water and make your water and infrastructure dramatically more reliable very quickly. Today, I'll also be signing an executive order slashing all red tape and bureaucratic barriers and permits to ensure the rapid reconstruction of the roads here in western North Carolina. We're going to go through a permitting process that's called no permitting, just get it done. That's the way they built them many years ago, I guarantee you that, right?
See, this guy's built buildings. And they know there's a huge problem. Listen, these people need houses. They need a roof over their head. And he knows that. So he's signing this executive order to slash all this red tape and to do something about it. He was in California. He's in California still. He goes out there and he said, look, we're not going to turn $100 billion or whatever the amount of money is over to the state of California, which will not do what the state of California is supposed to do. And I'll give you evidence of that. They got an enormous amount of money from this so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which was a climate change act, which was a massive ruse to send money, particularly to these blue states and these left-wing groups. They had plenty of money in California to start addressing these issues, especially the provision of water to make sure their hydrants work, to make sure their sprinklers work, to make sure firefighters get what they need. They had plenty of money to take care of the undergrowth and these forests and all the dead trees and the plants, and they were warned over and over again that it's a tinderbox, that it's going to be a disaster, but they didn't care. Newsom lied about what he was doing. You could see that they were cutting back on funding for firefighters, for fire trucks. I mean, doing exactly the wrong thing, but they always have money for illegal aliens and homeless people and redistribution of wealth and all the rest of the crap. And that's what he's talking about. You want money, we want to help you, but we got to figure out a way to get this done so it doesn't just keep happening. Look at all the destitution. Look at the dead people. God. We've got to figure out how to do something about this. So there's going to be strings attached, and there should be. There's going to be strings attached. Hello, and there should be. Now, I want you to listen to this. Cut 4, Trump at the Asheville, North Carolina airport in Fletcher, North Carolina. Cut 4, go.
I don't know. I was told that Schiff was going to travel with us to California. I wasn't thrilled, to be honest with you. And I saw him last night on television. It looks like he got hit with a baseball bat or something. What happened to him? Something happened to him. It looked like he got hit. It looked like he got beat around. But I'll ask Caroline to find out what happened to him. No, if he wanted to come out, I would have done that. But I don't know. Somebody said that he wanted to come on the plane, but I think he's staying back for the votes.
And what has Schiff done exactly for the state of California? Nothing. Nothing. He's a bad dude. He's a bad person. All talk, no action. Big mouth. Now, he terminated Fauci's security. I didn't even know Fauci had security, to be honest with you, America. I had no idea. I didn't know Fauci had security for the rest of his life. Now, Fauci was the highest paid bureaucrat for many, many years. He's a multimillionaire. And so, of course, the question is, why doesn't he pay for his own security? Why do we have to pay for it? And I didn't know he's getting threats. Apparently he is. But let's check this out. Cut 5, go.
The security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, sir. Do you have a comment?
No, I think, when you work for government, at some point your security detail comes off. And, you can't have them forever. So I think it's very standard. If it would be for somebody else, you wouldn't be asking the question. The question is very fair. But, you work for government. We took some off other people, too. But you can't have a security detail for the rest of your life because you worked for government.
Ask for it to be taken off, sir?
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Would you feel partially responsible if something were to happen to, say, Dr. Fauci or John Bolton?
No. They all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money. They all did. So if they, felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. So over at the Constipated News Network, which is in utter and complete turmoil right now, Jim Acosta, who you really don't care about, and one day he will be doing news reports such as they are from airport radar and sonograms. It's where he belongs. By the way, whatever happened to Chris Wallace, Mr. Producer? Where's he? He's nowhere. He's nowhere. He has a soapbox on the corner somewhere, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs with a raincoat on, handing out cigarettes or something of that sort. And I'm sure Jim Acosta would follow. He's been nothing but a circus clown. Oops, excuse me, we like circus clowns here. He's been nothing but a schmuck. And so, of course, they have John Bolton on. Now, when John Bolton was actually rational, and in my opinion sane, they wanted nothing to do with John Bolton. They would mock John Bolton. But because John Bolton now is sort of the anti-Trump, they bring him on as often as they can. Does he have anything to contribute? Not really. He's sort of the Adam Kinzinger of John Bolton's. Now, what does he think about the revoking of security? And so, of course, what do you think John Bolton thinks about that? Cut 6, go.
I guess, he did vow retribution during the campaign. Is that what this is? What's your response to that?
Well, great question. No wonder they want to push you to midnight. No wonder they want to push you to midnight. And the only people who will watch you on CNN at midnight is the people who turn on their TV, and they need the light from the TV. A lot of people need sort of a soft light from TV to fall asleep, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Go ahead.
No, I think it is retribution. Look, there are several people, several former officials who are being protected because of Iranian threats made against their lives in connection with the elimination of Qasem Soleimani back in January of 2020, a decision President Trump himself approved. If you could ask all of us, I'll speak for all of them, I think I can do that, we'd be delighted to say we'd like to see the protection ended well before the end of our lives if the threat diminishes.
Okay. You're going to have to pay for your own security. It's not fun, but it's something you'll need to do. One of the things that is concerning a lot of people is the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran. And in that regard, we've talked about this a lot as recently as last evening. Their speed toward getting a nuclear bomb. Trey Yingst, a very good reporter out of Israel, said they're weeks away. The IAEA of the United Nations said they're weeks away. We're apparently sending over Stephen Witkoff to negotiate with them. We're like the 10th administration negotiating with the Islamo-Nazi regime. They're on their back thanks to the Israelis. Their ground-to-air missile system is dead thanks to the Israelis. Their electricity is all but dead thanks to the Israelis. Their gas lines are free for the attacking thanks to the Israelis. The Israelis can attack their nuclear sites. And we're holding them back, apparently. Just like Biden. It's crazy. It's crazy. Especially after they were attacked, and I recollect President Trump saying they ought to take out their nuclear sites. No negotiation works with terrorists, even if they say, sure, we'll do it. And then when Trump's gone, they'll do what they do. But if they fear Donald Trump, it's the Israelis they fear. Because it's the Israelis who are there, have the capacity, not only able to go, they want to go. They're chomping at the bit to go. I don't know what this negotiated settlement, what's this negotiation going to look like? Are they going to sign it? Like that's going to make a difference? I'm serious, folks. This is the old way of thinking. And I think Donald Trump was enormously successful in foreign policy because he rejected all that. And I would encourage him to reject all this advice, too. These restrictors or restrainers, whatever this little cabal of morons and low IQ types keep talking about, that's a dead end. That's a disaster. That's a complete disaster. I know these people are laced throughout the government. They weaseled their way in. There are more and more reports about who they are. Part of the Koch Foundation operation. Part of the Koch Soros Quincy Institute. How the hell did they get anywhere near the Trump government? I'm just being very serious about this, folks. They shouldn't. And so President Trump was asked about this by Sean Hannity. By the way, I'm going to be on Jesse Waters' show tonight. I will be on Jesse Waters' show tonight. There's a lot of shows that have been asking me to come on. I haven't been doing it. Number one, because of the injury. Number two, because I got a ton to do. But we're going to start doing more. Because there's just too much important going on. So we'll be on his show tonight. He's a good guy, by the way. Really nice guy. Anyway, what I was saying was he was asked in this interview with Hannity about taking out the Iranian nukes. Now, we're not going to have enough time this hour, but I do want to hit it. I do want to hit it into the next hour because it's very important. Iran has hypersonic missiles. They will perfect them even further with the help of the Communist Chinese and the Russians. They'll perfect them even further, and they'll put nuclear warheads on them. And once they get a nuclear warhead, they will continue to perfect it, and they'll be capable of hitting our cities. I just don't want Iran to get a nuclear capacity on our watch for sure at all, but on Donald Trump's watch when we're waving around, hey, we got a deal. Got to think very hard about this. So we'll address this again at the top of the next hour. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We have a tremendous weekend of programming for you on Life, Liberty, and Levin. It's absolutely tremendous. And the monologues, you are going to flip over these monologues. I just know you are. And we have Molly Hemingway and we have Peter Schweitzer tomorrow night. And they are fantastic, as you well know. We have Chairman Jordan. We're going to go over these pardons and lawfare and what he's going to do about it as the chairman of the committee, working with Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and hopefully Kash Patel, as well as Katie Pavlich. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic show. And I hope you folks will be able to watch it. The Panama Canal, I thought now was the time to have a discussion about this. I really did. Over at the American Conservative, they have a pretty good piece there, the debate of 1978, the uproar over Trump's remarks. Let's see. What was old is new again, they write. In his inaugural address on Monday, President Trump, the first ex-president to take the oath of office since 1893, he gave every indication that he intends to use his final 4 years in office as a disruptor, and perhaps even destroyer of the status quo. Issues long thought to have been settled by both law and precedent have, thanks to Trump, elbowed their way back into the public square. One such issue, they write, is control of the Panama Canal. In his second inaugural address, President Trump charged that the canal, and he's right about this 100%, has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in building the Panama Canal. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our Navy can't get from one ocean to the other without going all the way down what we call the Horn of South America, all the way down, way out of the way to do it. So that's why it was built over 100 years ago. It's one of the great, great achievements. We've been treated very badly, he said, from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated, and above all, China is operating the Panama Canal. Who's been talking about this for years and years and years? Moi? And we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. As with so much else driving Trump's foreign policy agenda, it seems squarely aimed at sending a message to communist China. Yet as with the political battles over abortion, immigration, tariffs, even Canada, the debate over control of the canal is not new. Mr. Trump's threat to revisit terms of the Tratados, Carter treaties of 1978, which eventually ceded control of the Panama Canal to Panama while guaranteeing its neutrality, recalls one of the more lively and elucidating intra-conservative battles and debates of the past half-century. The unlikely antagonists in yesteryear's debate over the canal were none other than former two-term governor of California and future president Ronald Reagan and the putative godfather of the conservative movement, William F. Buckley, Jr. It wasn't very often, given their long friendship and political affinities, that Reagan and Buckley found themselves on opposite sides of issues of public controversy. But by late 70s, the Republican administrations of Nixon and Ford, as well as the Democratic administration of Carter, had signaled the time had come to revisit the terms of the Hay-Buan-Wa-Variety Treaty of 1903, which granted the U.S. permanent rights to the canal zone. Reagan's 1976 primary challenge to the Republican incumbent Ford included a memorable attack on the Nixon-Kissinger-Ford position in favor of handing back control to Panama. He said, "We built it, we paid for it, it's ours." I remember this like it was yesterday. The historian Joshua Zeitz recently noted in Politico that Reagan's gambit proved to be an unusually potent campaign issue, tipping both presidential primaries and congressional races in states as far and wide as Colorado, New Hampshire, and Idaho. But there were those within the conservative movement who disagreed with their once future hero, Reagan, the most influential being Buckley, the editor of National Review and the host of the PBS Special Affairs program Firing Line. Buckley, who could never be accused of chasing ratings, chose to host a 2-hour debate on the topic. 2-hour debate. The principals, Buckley and Reagan, were allowed to pick their respective debate squads. Reagan recruited the future founder of the American Conservative, Pat Buchanan, the Latin American affairs expert, Roger Fontaine, and the Navy's admiral, you may have heard of this guy, John McCain Jr., father of the future senator from Arizona. Buckley was joined by his longtime National Review colleague and former Marxist theorist James Burnham, the columnist George Will, and Admiral Elmo Zumwalt. Ambassador Ellsworth Bunker, an aside, why don't we have ambassadors with names like that anymore, was present to answer any technical questions about the treaty, while former U.S. Senator Sam Ervin of Watergate fame served as the moderator. Reagan, like Trump, wanted to keep control of the canal zone, but for different reasons. For Trump, it's all about China. For Reagan, it was the evergreen bugaboo of the U.S. foreign policy establishment. It was credibility, theirs, which they lacked. I don't believe that in Latin America we would do anything to strengthen our position by, again, yielding to the unpleasantness of this treaty. I think, if anything, we would become a laughingstock by surrendering to unreasonable demands, and by doing so, I think we cloak weakness in the suit of virtue. Buckley said something quite different. He said, the fact of the matter is there are people in Panama who don't accept the notion of Governor Reagan about the undisputed, unambiguous sovereignty the United States exercises over that territory. We do have the the absolute right, which I don't deny, which my colleagues don't deny, to stay there as long as we want. But to say that we have sovereignty, as Governor Reagan has said, is to belie the intention of the people who supervised our diplomacy in the early part of the century. And it's also to urge people to believe we harbor an appetite for colonialism. Oh, come on. While the debate over the future of the canal will almost certainly divide Democrats from Republicans, it also has the potential to divide the navel gavers who compromise these so-called realist and restraint foreign policy. See, I've been talking about these so-called realists and restraint guys, these Eldridge Colbys, Dan Caldwell, I think the guys, and these others that come out of this Koch Soros mindset and entity, this Quincy Institute, and some of them just comes flat out of this Koch-funded entity. I think they're dangerous. I think they undermine our national security. I think they're a small cabal of sort of an oddball group that believes we're the colonialists, we're the imperialists, that but for us, there'd be so much more peace and prosperity around the world. They claim to be the American firsters when they're the American lasters. Maybe that for another day. In the end, Trump has reopened debate around what was thought to be a long-settled issue. Perhaps it would be too much to hope that those on both sides of the current debate over the future of the Panama Canal follow the example set by Reagan and Buckley back in 1978. Well, I know a lot about this. My mentor, one of them, other than my parents, but one of my mentors was Paul Laxalt, Adam Laxalt's grandfather. Paul Laxalt was governor of Nevada when period of time he overlapped when Reagan was governor of California. They became extremely close, best friends and confidants. When Ronald Reagan decided to take on Gerald Ford in 1976 and this whole foreign policy establishment, just as Trump has tried to take on the whole foreign policy establishment, I hope he'll stick to that in the Middle East, as a matter of fact. I remember this debate, and I remember who was on what side. Laxalt led the effort with Reagan in the Senate in 1978. They ultimately lost by 1 or 2 votes because, you know, a treaty requires 2/3. 2/3. And they got 2/3. I think that's all they got. But it was Reagan's position, that, just like Trump's, that we needed that. And so we have people today, we're imperialists, colonialists. No, we're not. That's simply national security. Simply national security. What Donald Trump has done there is absolutely crucial, and he's got the guts and the courage to fight for it. Same with Greenland. Canada, I think, is more of a show, more of a joke. It's not going to become the 51st state, and I wouldn't want it to become the 51st state. But Greenland's another. This relationship it has with the Dutch is a very strange one indeed. And it's not that Greenland is a sovereign part of another country. But I don't know what the people in Greenland want to do. There's not many of them, and it's a very big, you can call it an island, you can call it whatever you want. But it's now in a crucial part of the planet because the communist Chinese and the Russians are very busy trying to conquer both points, North and South Poles, effectively, to put their missile systems there, to put their subs there, and so forth and so on, and they're making claims about them. They're making claims about them. And so Donald Trump is no isolationist, as you can see. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you could get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot, just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of 4 could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company. You'll notice who's driving the agenda in every direction and on everything. You'll notice who's driving the agenda. Donald Trump. It's good to be on offense. It really is. And it's good to be on offense in a positive way. On the border, they're having to sue him and the administration, right? Yeah, that's what they're having to do. And they're going to have to do that in all other fronts, too. So they're going to use the courts. They're going to use their judges as best as they can to try and thwart Trump. That is, they're trying to use the unelected part of the government. They're trying to form shop for the most left-wing judges. And I think the Supreme Court's going to be very busy. And I'm very nervous about Comey Barrett. I'm very nervous about John Roberts. I don't know if they're up to this, quite frankly. I just don't know. I just don't know. And I think it's going to matter. I mean, you look at this issue of birthright citizenship, right? Judge says it's unconstitutional. Blatantly unconstitutional. All my years on the bench, I've never seen anything more blatantly unconstitutional. If the 25-minute hearing, which he doesn't take seriously, a 25-minute hearing he doesn't take seriously, issues a temporary restraining order, which is the precursor to a temporary injunction, which he will issue. It's a Seattle left-wing judge appointed in the during the Reagan presidency. As I've explained before, they have to cut deals. They have to cut deals, and they cut the deals on district court levels, this level of litigation, Judge. That is, in order for Republicans sometimes to get through appointments with Democrats controlling the Senate, as Schumer did for a period of time, the president has to say, all right, I'll give you one of yours, you give me two of mine. And they only do this at the district court level, not appellate level, because that's too important. But there's about 1,000 judges, 800, 1,000 district court judges. This is one of those judges who many years ago Reagan had to make the deal in order to get through some of his, in order to give them, he had to give them one of theirs. And this was one of them. He's on senior status. What that means, that's a quasi-retirement. They don't want a full-time docket. So somehow this guy on senior status, who's an old man, who's not a full-time judge, he gets the case. And he decides he's going to dispose of it as fast as possible. Now, one of the other controversies here is that a single federal district judge can put in a temporary restraining order, temporary injunction, permanent injunction, or do whatever they do, and it covers the entire country. The entire country. One judge out of hundreds. Now, Clarence Thomas has commented on this. And he said, you know, really, it's kind of ridiculous to have one judge who has that kind of power over the entire country. And these plaintiffs, you know, they go ahead and they form shop. The issue of birthright citizenship, it was really decided on the Constitution, the legislative history, would be a no-brainer, but the other way. It would be a no-brainer, but the other way. That is what? That is, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in the 14th Amendment. The jurisdiction thereof does not mean that anybody comes here and has a baby, that baby is automatically a citizen. The context in which jurisdiction was discussed back then was that the person had to have full allegiance to the United States and not in more than just being here physically within the United States. That's the position. And that was the position for 70 years after the adoption of the 14th Amendment. There was a Supreme Court decision in 1898, 2 years after Plessy, where the court was very upset, and rightly so, about how Congress had treated Chinese individuals who were here in the most racist way and said that they could never become citizens. Why? Because of race. That was the problem with Dred Scott. They said blacks of African descent who are slaves, even if they're freed slaves, could never become citizens under the Constitution. But that's not what the Constitution has ever said. It doesn't say that. And so you're dealing with racists, and you had to deal with racism in Dred Scott, so they reversed it with the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which actually had language in it and said the jurisdiction of the United States and not a foreigner. Not a foreigner, not an alien. And the same people who were involved in writing the 1866 Civil Rights Act were involved in authoring what would be the 1868 14th Amendment, which was adopted in 1868 and then sent to the states for ratification. Very, very important. And that was the context. And even during that debate, the author of that 14th Amendment said it wouldn't apply to aliens. In fact, he said it doesn't even apply to Indians, quote unquote. That is, it doesn't even apply to Native Americans. Why? Because he said if Native Americans have a fealty or an allegiance to their tribe, then they can't possibly have an allegiance to the United States at the same time. They were very, very, clear about this. And so all the history's been thrown out the door. The language, as was understood and intended back then, has been thrown out the door. It was thrown out the door in 1898 when the Supreme Court said, look, you have, in this case, two parents, one of whom is a legal migrant in the United States, a legal migrant on their way to citizenship, not a citizen yet, and the other who is coming to the United States legally as well and who will also become eventually a legal naturalized citizen. Therefore, that baby, that Chinese baby, is, under the 14th Amendment, a citizen because that child was born here. That case has no foundation in constitutional basis. It was important that kind of racism was stopped. But then to take that, and by the way, notice they don't talk about illegal aliens. There is nothing anywhere in statute, in history, nothing that says the children of illegal aliens have birthright citizenship. This notion of universal birthright citizenship has been developed. It's not in the Constitution. You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you could get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot, just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of four could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
The one-man antidote for liberal media bias, Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
I didn't forget Donald Trump on Iran and getting nukes. Let's listen to what he said to Hannity. Cut 7, go.
The only thing I've said about Iran, and I want them to have a great country. They have great potential. The people are amazing. The only thing I said about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they are religious.
Will you discuss with them?
They are religious.
Do you trust them?
There are ways that you can make it absolutely certain if you make a deal, a certain type of a deal. And you have to verify times 10.
Yeah.
But they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And, if they get one, you're going to have everyone else getting them, and then the whole thing is going to be a disaster. The nuclear, I was dealing at the very end, with Putin about the denuclearization of Russia and the United States. And then we were going to bring China along on that one because they have much less than we do. China, believe it or not, is much less. They will have an equal amount in 5 years, 6 years. They're trying to get there. unfortunately. But right now they have much less in terms of nuclear. I was very close to having a deal. I would have made a deal with Putin on that denuclearization. It's very dangerous and very expensive, okay, both. And that would have been great, but we had a bad election that interrupted us, and that's why I'm here now.
Yep. And I really want to make sure that these restrainers or restrictors, these kooks, aren't undermining what has been a brilliant foreign policy legacy so far of Donald Trump. In the Middle East, so far we have the Biden deal that was signed off on. I understand there were a lot of people who pushed for that and very, very hard, including some Jewish billionaires who were involved. Okay, fine. We'll see if Hamas complies with it. If they don't and Netanyahu goes in, we will see if they start attacking Netanyahu again in the media and elsewhere. But we have to shake off this old formula. We really do. If Hamas is left standing, then all that Israel did is for naught. It's for naught. If Iran gets nukes, we make a deal with Iran, they're going to get nukes. Because there's no deal that any stadium full of the smartest lawyers in the country can put together that's going to stop a terrorist regime from working underground and secretly building a nuclear program. Once they have that information in their technological toolbox, you can't remove it. And so I'm not sure I totally understand this answer. I get it. He wants to avoid Israel attacking them militarily. And I know the restrainers and the restrictors, they think Israel is the problem. Many of them are anti-Semites. I didn't say the ones that you're reading about are, but many of them are. They say we wouldn't even provide defensive weapons to Israel. Okay, well, now you've exposed yourselves fully and completely. Fully and completely. But, you know, this is a very serious matter, and same with Saudi Arabia. Look, Qatar's throwing around billions of dollars in our country and buying off politicians, ex-politicians, businessmen, businesswomen. Saudi Arabia's throwing around billions of dollars buying off politicians and businessmen and businesswomen. We have an opportunity here to fundamentally alter what's taking place in the Middle East. And I want to remind you, you may think that's a way, way far away. It is. But somehow they managed to hit us on 9/11 in the greatest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. A handful of Islamo-Nazis, a handful, slaughtered well over 2,000 of our people. Nobody thought it could happen. Can you imagine what these people will do with nuclear weapons? Shouldn't we be cheering Israel on? Shouldn't we support Israel? They're the point of the spear. They're in the neighborhood. Their military, which is a tremendous military, it's a tiny country, which is so competent. Their military is prepared to do this for us. Should we at least give them support? We don't have to send troops. We don't have to send jets. Just give a wink and a nod. These terrorists are not going to stop, America. Qatar's not going to stop funding the anti-Semitism, the Jew hatred, and even more, the American hatred in this country. It's not going to stop. It's got supporters, cheerleaders in our own country, some at the highest levels. Saudi Arabia's not going to stop. Oh, yeah, we'll send $600 billion to the United States over 10 years. They take the money that you and I, that we pay in overpriced oil, and they give us some back, and then we're supposed to be happy? I said before, why aren't we putting tariffs on OPEC? Why aren't we putting tariffs specifically on Saudi Arabia? They're ripping us off. They're driving up the price of gasoline to you, the American people, to us, to me, to we. How do they escape tariffs? I don't know. They should be hit with tariffs. How does Qatar get to spend billions of dollars in our country for the purpose of destroying our schools and the minds of our kids? How do they get away with backing groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a Islamo-Nazi front organization? How do they get away, these other groups, with supporting CARE, which is a Hamas front group? How does Qatar get away with giving $1.8 billion to Hamas? Hamas has killed American citizens. And they're our mediator? And we're praising them? They're doing, quote unquote, God's work? And I'm sure that President Trump will do the right thing here. I have to believe, and I believe he will. The government in Iran and their nuclear weapons. They are pushing for nuclear weapons so they can threaten and blackmail and, given their fundamentalism, and even use nuclear weapons. This is their ideology. This is their mission. Why do they keep saying death to America? You have a country that says death to America, that has killed Americans on the battlefield, that has wounded Americans on the battlefield, all through Iraq, but not just there, in Lebanon, wherever they can get us. They have sent hitmen to the United States. They have a foothold in our hemisphere. Whatever happened to the Monroe Doctrine? They have a foothold in Venezuela. They're working with the communist Chinese, the North Koreans, and the Russians against us. Some things are not negotiable. That's the way it is. Negotiating with terrorists as if they're going to... What is a terrorist? Do they honor a piece of paper? Do they give a crap what they sign? Did they honor the Obama deal? Did they honor subsequent threats? No. They never stopped building or moving towards developing a nuclear weapon. Nothing has stopped them. Zero. The only country that has the guts to actually try and stop them is Israel. The Iranian regime, the Islamo-Nazi, death to America regime is on its back right now. Not thanks to the Biden regime, thanks to the Netanyahu government. They're on their back. And we're going to give them mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Seriously? Nah, the president's smarter than that. There's no way he would agree to that. I can't believe that. No. And I won't believe it. No, I can't believe it. To say that we're going to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons through a deal, they'll sign that in 2 minutes with Trump. They fear Trump. They'll say, yeah, whatever you want. And they'll wait 4 years. Or maybe they'll wait 3 years. Or maybe they'll wait 2 years. It'll be too late. They're going to have their ground-to-air missile systems back up and running. God knows what Israel's going to have to do. And so, just like your own lives, for a country, timing is everything. Timing is everything. We need to stop pressuring Israel. We need to stop harassing Israel when it comes to Hamas, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, when it comes to Hezbollah, when it comes to Iran. This seems to now be sort of an echo chamber in our foreign policy establishment. And when you have these restrictor, restrainer, whack job types, it becomes a problem for you and me, a problem as they secrete themselves into the Pentagon and other places in our government. It becomes a big problem. So I'm just pointing this out because I want to be helpful in the most positive way I possibly can be. That's why you hear me saying that I love Donald Trump. I love his leadership. I believe strongly than most other people, I think, that he will do the right thing. Because he's smart. Because he knows what the right thing is. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot Just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of four could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/LEVIN, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Here it is, almost 8 p.m. on Friday night on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. area. And Donald Trump's still working in California. This guy is, I've never seen anything like 78 years old. I mean, do people do this when they're 28, 38, 48, 58? God knows I can't. Although I got up at 6 today. I'll finish the radio show at 9. That is 15 hours, right, Mr. Producer? Something like that. But I don't compare my responsibilities to his, that's for sure. We only have a little time left in this segment, but let's pick up Donald Trump at this news conference in California. Go ahead.
To be with you. Unfortunately, it's a very sad period, but what makes you feel good is I met so many of the homeowners, and every one of them, a lot of them, and every one of them said to me they want to rebuild. I said, will you go elsewhere? No. It wasn't even like a question. They love the area. They love the people. It's like a family. It's incredible, actually, when you see some things like that. We just left North Carolina, and we had just a similar type of disaster. It was water instead of fire, but boy, that water did damage like I've never seen before. And then you come here and you see this. But the people are so amazing, and your fire department was so beautiful. Every one of them is in perfect physical shape. I said, what do you guys do? They have very high standards, I can tell you. And we took pictures with all of them, but very nicely they gave us a little helmet. And I said, you wear this, huh? Is this real? And they said, yeah. I said, it's awfully heavy. You have to be very strong to wear that. But that's the original, right? So it's pretty good. But I just want to thank everybody. We're going to be with you. Your governor met us at the plane. And we had a good talk, very, very positive talk. We have to work together to get this really worked out. I don't think you can realize how rough it is, how devastating it is until you see it. I didn't realize. I mean, I saw a lot of bad things on television, but the extent of it, the size of it, we flew over it in a helicopter. We flew to a few of the areas, and it is devastation. It's incredible. It's really an incineration. Even some of the chimneys came down, okay? When you have the chimneys come down, you know that's pretty hot stuff, and a lot of them were down. That was a bad sign, too. But I just want to commiserate, and we're going to celebrate. We'll be back to celebrate one day soon, I hope soon. The federal government standing behind you, 100%. The First Lady and I are in California to express a great love for the people of California. I've had great...
Well, we have the top of the hour break, but you can see what a fantastic and compassionate leader he is. And he means what he says, and you can hear that he means what he says. You think Biden can pull that off? You think Kamala Harris could even complete a sentence? We're very lucky to have this man. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
The president is still running this press conference. We've been listening in. I think it's very, very important, especially the people of California. So let's tap into this. Go ahead.
In working to help people get back to normal and to rebuild. But right now they have nothing. And there have been 9,500 structures burned. Most of the deaths have occurred in our area at the Eaton fire. And thousands of people are without homes. And these are working people. These are working class people. They are people like Dr. Jackie Jacobs, who was an educator all her life and then finally became the first black administrator.
It's very sad, and you have to wonder why these very politicians didn't do the job that they were elected to do. And they squandered money, and they were busy social engineering, and they weren't taking care of their constituents. They're taking care of illegal immigrants and all kinds of ideological agendas, but they didn't take care of the basics, like trying to protect effectively their communities from what they knew would be wildfires at some point. They have utterly mismanaged for ideological reasons the water resources in the state. It's just terrible. And it's going to get worse if they don't put an end to it right now. Go ahead.
You express yourself beautifully, actually. But I've only been here 3 days, and I'll do a great job. But we had another president, and this took place during the life of another president, not me. But I'm going to be the president that's going to help you fix it, because he would not have been able to help you fix it. Okay? So we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it, and we'll work closely. Yeah, we'll work closely, and I know your community was really devastated, incredibly. So we understand that. Thank you very much,
Mr. President. I'm just going to follow up, Supervisor.
Yes, please go ahead.
And I also represent Altadena, and what I tell people is, people of Altadena are the exact people you talked to when you were running. You've got individuals from every walk of life, and it is actually at one time was the only place African Americans could purchase homes. It was redlined, and so you've got a lot of generational wealth there. And one of the commitments I've made, and we've had meetings with some of the people in HUD that you've got there now, to work with them, work with your administration to see how we can help. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I know on HUD we've got some asks that we are going to be working with you on. But more importantly, I just really want to emphasize what Congresswoman Chu said, and that is that these are individuals who are feeling forgotten. And what I tell them is, and when we invite
I will tell the nation that
I told when I went to
the Representative Chu is a big Trump hater, a big leftist, big into this climate change stuff. And now they come to the president because they need help. And they should get help.
And now their biggest
but we can't go through this again, and these people in these communities can't go through this again, and these local officials, many of them, not all, are utterly irresponsible. And so there needs to be some mature leadership
our county staff
that helps to protect the citizens of California, these citizens in particular.
We are an all hands on deck.
And basically, you can't just have a blank check anymore. You can have a check, but it's going to have conditions, and those conditions are not intended to be harsh or punitive or anything of the sort. Those conditions are intended to save lives and property in the future. Go ahead.
Reformed, if not eliminated, and if it's being eliminated for this.
How are they doing with CEQA?
How are they doing?
How is it? What's been the attitude of the people running that whole situation?
It adds sometimes years on to an application.
Can't do it.
No, and the governor's
and Coastal Commission also.
He waived that.
We're going to have to override the Coastal Commission because I've dealt with the Coastal Commission for a long time, and they are considered the most difficult in the entire country. And we cannot have them play their games and wait 10 years to give somebody a permit. In fact, I'm going to override the Coastal Commission. I'm not going to let them get away with their antics. Okay?
See how important this is, and you're going to see right now some pushback from the
thank you,
from the bureaucrats, the politicians, and the groups.
Thank you for your leadership on California water policy. You made it a priority from day one. For those of us in the Central Valley in Northern California, we have catastrophic wildfires as well. California is a wildfire-prone area, so ensuring reliable, stable water supplies is critical. And so your leadership, your executive order, moving more water, maximizing flows throughout the state of California, building more water storage, more conveyance, coordinating. It
would have a great impact on, I know your area very well. It would have an unbelievable impact on your area.
Absolutely. We just want to thank you for making it a priority.
You know, even beyond the fire stuff, the farms. I was driving up with congressmen a few years ago because they were complaining they had no water. And I was driving up, and you'll see all of this incredible land, but it's absolutely bone dry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you'll see little green patches And the green patches are so beautiful. You know, they have that land. They say it's as good as Iowa farmland, but it has no water. And it's artificial, has no water. They send the water out into the Pacific Ocean. And when we let that water come through your valleys and down to Los Angeles and everything, you're going to have a different place. It's going to be a whole different place. And you guys have to get together and say, gee, we want it. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So at least you said that, and I appreciate it. Because your farmers will be able to, instead of having 1 acre out of 100, which is all they have, they'll be able to have 100 acres out of 100. And it's among the best. They say it's the best farmland just about in the country, as good as any place there is. So, but you can't, it's no good without water. So that's beyond the fire stuff. But today we're talking about fire, but it's good for everything. So I hope you can lead a group. And Daryl, if you can lead a group, I know how you feel. And, you know, support what I'm doing, because what I'm doing, I guess, is controversial. I don't know what's controversial about sending millions and millions of gallons of beautiful fresh water from the Pacific Northwest and further up than even that into an area that's bone dry. We have to, you know, I have a house in Beverly Hills, and you get notices every once in a while. They want you to go down to 38 gallons per person or something, per house, per person. I say, you mean you can only have, 38 gallons sounds like a lot. It's not a lot. And they want to do that every once in a while, and you just think it's ridiculous when you have like just about as much water as anybody in the country, and we shouldn't be in a position where you have tumbleweed that's dry as a bone, that even tumbleweed can be nice and green and rich and loaded up with water, and it's not going to burn. You don't even have to remove it. It's not going to burn, but it's just dry.
You know why I'm playing this?
So I hope you can.
Because this is fascinating to me.
I'm so happy with
the give and take in the substance of how the president deals with this and how much knowledge he has, the details about this over the years. You've never had a president who does this before. Go ahead.
Other areas. It's in numerous other areas. So it doesn't have to be protected. The people of California have to be protected.
Mr. President, could I just speak for a moment?
Kevin Kiley, California.
Yes.
First of all, you're absolutely right about the Coastal Commission. I've introduced legislation to rein them in. We've been talking with Rick about this.
They're out of control.
Absolutely out of control. It's insane the things they've been getting away with.
I think they thrive on it, actually, if you want to know the truth. It's so ridiculous.
That's right. They even tried to stop SpaceX from launching rockets.
That's true.
But you mentioned your predecessor and how he didn't fix the situation, which is absolutely right. Not only that, during the Calder fire, which was a few years ago, which was in my district, 600 people lost their homes in a town called Grizzly Flat. He came and he promised that he would help them out, but he broke that promise many times. He never delivered them the individual assistance they were asking for. So this has underscored for me the importance of helping the victims, making sure in this situation, in every fire, we get money to the victims and we make sure that, that nothing stands in the way of that. But I just want to thank you for your focus on bringing sanity.
By the way, folks, you know there's new fires right now, and they are on the move, these fires. There's more fires, and they're hoping for rain over the weekend. Now, the problem with the rain, you have a number of these homes that have survived that are going to slip right off the cliffs. So it is a massive disaster. Go ahead.
I am a journalist with Breitbart News, but I happen to live in the Pacific Palisades.
Our buddy Joel Pollard.
As do other colleagues. One colleague, John Kahn, wrote the song Fighter, which you played at your campaign rallies. He lost his house and the studio he wrote that song in. We were lucky because I was able to fight the fire on my fence. But when I got to my house, there was no water in the pipes. So I got inside and I picked up the flower vases because I give my wife flowers every week, and there was water there, and we started with that. Then I found my son's bucket of baseballs, and I dumped the baseballs on the ground, and I used the bucket. But there was still no water except for the water in the gutter coming from the burnt homes uphill. So I went to and fro to my gutter and my fence with my bucket. 2 guys showed up in a truck, 2 neighbors. We found 2 more buckets, bucket after bucket after bucket. Many of my neighbors, including some here, tried to fight the fires. They couldn't. We were lucky our house was saved. But we should not have to rely on buckets to put out a fire.
That's right.
You can't stop an 80-mile-per-hour wind or 100-mile-per-hour wind, but there were many things that went wrong here that are basic and small. We did not have traffic police to guide the evacuation, so there was gridlock on Sunset.
I'm intrigued by this, I must tell you, the importance of it and the kind of discussion we're having here. Our nation's never seen this before. We can do another 30 seconds, and we have to take a break, Mr.
Deployed, even though there was an extreme wind event coming. And many of my neighbors lost their fire insurance in the days before the blaze. So I asked my neighbors, what would they want to know if I could ask the president a question? And the number one thing was insurance. Can you work with the insurance companies to get people back to where they were before they lost the coverage because of California's regulations?
I've got to go, but just a real quick synopsis on insurance. The problem is the state there has capped what the insurance companies can charge. Now, every state has these commissions. They have to make requests, but California has been incredibly onerous. So you know what the insurance companies did, Mr. Producer? They left. They said, we will go broke if there's a major event. This is a major event. They said, you know, they don't have the ability to tax. They have to charge premiums. They have to charge premiums to a bigger number of people, with the premiums going up and up and up when you have these events. It's called insurance. It's not philanthropy. It's not the government that can just tax or deficit spend. These are institutions. These are insurance institutions. So they wouldn't even allow them to raise the amount that they said, okay, we can't get it all, but we got to raise it more. And they said no, and many of these companies just left. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I want to mention happy birthday to my brother Doug tomorrow. My brother Doug tomorrow will be 70 years old, Mr. Producer. He's my older brother. I could never have had a better brother. Incredibly decent, big heart, always there for me, all throughout my life and career, quite frankly. He's a big guy, he's 6'4", he's very muscular. He was a bouncer at one point, but very quiet. He's a beautiful painter, small businessman, you know. When the economy was bad, he was eking out profits. It was difficult. A wonderful son to my parents, a wonderful father to his children. Just a thoroughly decent and kind human being. And I love him very much, and I want to wish him a very, very happy birthday, my brother Doug Levin. He was also a boxer for a period of time, amateur. And he would go to North Philadelphia, tough neighborhood, to the Joe Frazier gym. We met from time to time. He would box. Some of these guys were very tough. Like one of the Young brothers, Y-O-U-N-G, Young brothers, who won, I think, the championship, the heavyweight, at one point. I know my mother got furious and told him he had to stop. He was young. He was like 19, 20, 21. She said, that's enough. So he had to stop. I want to introduce a friend of ours, the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. Kevin Roberts, how are you, my friend?
Well, it's great always being with you, and I can tell you 4 or 5 days into the Trump administration, I'm not yet tired of winning.
Yeah, well, that's good, because I think we got a long way to go. Isn't that fantastic? I mean, first of all, the January 6th pardons. You know, I know the left goes nuts about this, and yet the left is the party of the Weather Underground, the FALN, and we can go on, the Black Panthers, all these terrorist underground groups, all the things they blew up, all the people they killed, and these January 6ers didn't kill anybody. And there's Joe Biden giving, commutations to real killers in the federal system, the worst of the worst. So what do you make of these pardons in January 6th?
Well, we certainly celebrate the restoration of justice for those 1,500 J6 folks. And yet, if you take a step back and you think about how close we were to the other side winning, although obviously Trump won a clear victory, but, you know, the former vice president had a chance at winning this. If she had won, Mark, not only would those people still be in prison, and a handful of them for the rest of their lives, but I think a lot of us would have been in trouble. I'll tell you a quick story. Our son is in college, and I talked to him the morning after the election. He's a college student, he's a conservative. And he said, Dad, congratulations on our side winning the election. But he said, most of all, congratulations to you, because we all know the FBI would have been at your door and the door of a lot of conservative activists. And so the lesson of this is that not only have we freed the J6 prisoners, but I'm hopeful that under the leadership of Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice, that we end once and for all the radical left setting up this double standard of justice.
You know, you make a tremendous point there. That is, they weren't done. The Justice Department wasn't done. They were going to round up more people, weren't they, Kevin?
They were. And, you know, I spend most of the day marching in the March for Life. Obviously, a lot of people in your audience are serious about the life issue. The point is, whether it's because you're a pro-life person or because you're generally a conservative or you're really focused on eliminating the Department of Justice's weaponization, a lot of us were on the FBI's list. And this is why early in Trump's presidency, he wanted to free these J6 prisoners, certainly intrinsically for the justice that was owed them, but also I think is a very significant sign to the deep state that he's not playing games. He's here to clean up the mess that they've made, and they've done it at the expense of the law, at the expense of the freedom of innocent Americans.
Oh, my God, that's really just so true. And what do you make of this? These executive orders? I'm talking to Kevin Roberts, the head muckety-muck over there at the Great Heritage Foundation. What do you make of these? You know, we talk about the first 100 days. What do you make of the first 100 hours?
Man, as you know, I had high hopes for the first days and weeks of the Trump presidency, but somehow, some way, in typical Trump fashion, he's surpassed that with just the shock and awe. And think about it, Mark. Now, you know, in the last hour, he's announced a great pro-life executive order we were sort of waiting to hear about today. And therefore, he has covered in his first 5 days in office through executive orders every public policy issue there is, from foreign policy to national security to taxation to tariffs to the life issue. He's on a roll. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, we have a break. I want to keep you, Kevin, and go through this in more detail as well, because I think we're looking at something that is truly historic. I mean, truly historic. We're here with Kevin Roberts. He's the great president of the Great Heritage Foundation, one of my absolute favorite groups. I've been associated with them. Let me see now. My God, I've been associated with them for like 40 years. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're talking to the president of the Heritage Foundation, one of the premier organizations for conservatism in this nation, the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. What did the president do, you said, respecting the pro-life movement today?
He addressed the Mexico City policy, where there can't be any federal funding for abortions internationally from the American taxpayer. So, you know, this is a typical yo-yo that dates back to the Reagan years, and there's an expectation, although I'll say as a pro-lifer, we don't feel entitled to this, an expectation that given President Trump's pro-life record that he would do that. And so what a great day to do it.
He's really been remarkable on these subjects, hasn't he? On morality.
He has. I mean, I think about, I was at the National Religious Broadcasters Conference speaking right before him, and the point that I made to him, thinking about how each of us is imperfect, right? That we're not electing a pastor of the country, we're electing a president. But I will also say that as I get older, I can tell a lot about a man or a woman based on the quality of his children. And just think about the totality of the Trump children. They're accomplished, they're good men and women, and all of that to say that when he spoke to tens of thousands of pro-life marchers, most of them high school and college students today, Mark, they were really touched. They were really moved, because this is a man who himself, like so many Americans, has evolved on the issue. And I hope he understands and his administration understands how grateful those of us who are lifelong pro-lifers are for his message today and for the outstanding speech that followed his message by Vice President Vance.
Do you think it's fair to say that he's one of the most conservative presidents in history? And I say it this way. You look at the border, Look what he's done with taxes. You look what he's done with the Supreme Court and other judgeships. Excuse me. You look what he did with Roe. You look at all of these things, and I think to myself, the Bushes could never do anything like this. And to me, he talks about common sense conservatism. They talk about populism. Call it whatever you want to. The fact of the matter is he's clearly a solid president. He doesn't come at it ideologically or philosophically. He just comes at it with common sense, no?
Yeah, and I think that's how most Americans do, right? You know how the D.C. chattering class is, and a lot of them who themselves really aren't very conservative, they probably don't even listen to your show or come to heritage events. They say, Trump is just so they shouldn't be talking about who's a conservative. They say Trump's just a pragmatist, and I say, I don't think so. I said, look at his record. But the underlying truth there is that he comes at it from a standpoint of gut instinct, of common sense. And I think that's why he connects with the American people kind of across the political spectrum. And I also think it's why he's going to be even more successful in the second non-consecutive term, because we've lived through 4 years of the opposite of common sense, driven by a really radical ideology. I just can't help but see the hand of Providence over all of us.
And honestly, isn't it true that the Heritage Foundation over the years in his first term and even now has been really very supportive of this president in terms of its policies, its programs, and so forth, and personnel even? You've had personnel that have worked in his administration who used to work for Heritage and vice versa. I mean, there really is a real significant overlay here between the Heritage Foundation and Trump, don't you think?
Well, there is, and it makes sense that there would be, because to your point just now, Trump has governed like a conservative. Heritage is the largest conservative public policy organization in the world. You know us well, going back to the Reagan years when Heritage leaders then advised Reagan and his staff, like General Meese, whom you know well, and that custom has continued. But that influence that Heritage had waned some during the two Bush presidencies, and nothing against them as men, but they were not as conservative as Trump. And so it would make sense that given how unabashedly conservative Heritage always has been and how conservative Trump is governing, particularly with this wonderful breath of fresh air as his vice president, that there's going to be this overlap. And so we have seen a lot of colleagues go into the administration. Obviously, Trump and Vance and their advisors make those decisions. We don't feel entitled to that. But it's no surprise to me, being very happy to be as helpful as I possibly can on the outside, that overlap probably is going to be extended.
This is Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation. And Kevin, what do you make of this constant effort to stop Pete Hegseth? This is a man who's imperfect, was imperfect when he was younger, but they're accusing him of things he never did. Rape, for God's sakes. They've accused him of physical violence against his ex-wife, which he said simply never happened. And this is a man who has become a born-again Christian, I would argue, and he would argue. And what do you make of their efforts to try and destroy and stop him? They seem to find, they think they can pick one or two or three and just kind of destroy them. And this is their technique, isn't it?
It's gross. I mean, this is the deep state at its worst, and they're picking on Pete, whom I've come to know well and respect, and I think his faith and born again Christian faith is very real. They're picking on him because he's going to be such an important reformer of making sure that at the Pentagon we're able to resuscitate Reagan's notion of peace through strength. In order to do that, you have to make some hard political and policy decisions about phasing out some weapons programs that simply can't be useful in the next war, and certainly sustain defense spending so that you can fight the next war well. Well, there are too many moneyed interests in D.C., including some in the Senate, to sort of accept that. And so the grossest part of this was a couple nights ago, referring to this episode you mentioned, where NBC News is running with this story that his ex-wife had already disavowed. So Heritage has spent over $1 million trying to get Pete confirmed, the entire cabinet confirmed. Your point, Mark, is excellent, because if they take Pete's scalp politically, then that's not going to be the only one. They're probably going to move on to a second, third, or fourth. And then Trump's agenda the people's agenda is arrested before it really even gets real momentum.
Yeah, they're gunning. They're still gunning for others too. I mean, this is the goal, to try and slow them down. This is what they do, and try and. Here's the way I see it: we need a Secretary of Defense. Right now, the bureaucrats are running the place. So, when you have Republicans like Murkowski and Collins, and maybe one or two others, who say no or they're dragging their feet, they're doing a grave disservice to the national security of this country, don't you think?
Well, they are. And just imagine if you're one of those Republican senators who votes against Hegseth, and God forbid he's not confirmed, and sometime between that vote and when the defense secretary is confirmed, there's some terrible national security disaster. That's on them. It is not an exaggeration to say that they have failed in the oath that they took when they swore into the U.S. Senate to protect and defend the people of the United States. And so I am very hopeful as we have this conversation and this vote is imminent that whatever ridiculous arguments are being made against Hegseth by the mainstream media and by the deep state are ignored by these Republican senators, because the American people will be better off with Pete Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, I think he'd be fantastic. I think he will be fantastic. And I will say this for myself. If he's defeated because of a handful of Republicans, I will encourage my audience, millions of people, I will encourage my audience, particularly in these individual states where these people come from, to defeat these Republicans, because we can't have this anymore. They need to be united. Our numbers are too small, whether it's the House or the Senate. And I'll tell you something else, Kevin Roberts, talking to Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation. They wouldn't be in the majority in the Senate but for Donald Trump. Murkowski and Collins would be backbenchers on committees if it wasn't for Donald Trump. And he says he wants Pete Hegseth. He wants this team. You would think just for once in their damnable careers, this is just me, they would step back and say, okay, this is what the president wants, and that's what we'll do. But they don't do that, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, think about Senator Collins, think about Senator Murkowski, who say that they really want to bring back to the Senate this spirit of compromise, a word that I've grown to hate. And if in fact they're genuine about that, then the way they should have handled this would have been to have given the President of the United States the courtesy of a phone call or a visit and say, Mr. President, we have these qualms. We want to trade something. We want to compromise with you on this. And even then, I think that's ridiculous. I want to be clear. But if they're going to have this kind of opposition to Hegseth, they could have gone about it a much different way. All of that to say, if you're Murkowski, where Trump won by 13 points in Alaska, you're really out of step with your voters. And so I think that's precisely the kind of thing that ultimately gets Hegseth across the finish line. All of that to say, to your earlier point, the deep state and a handful of these Republicans are looking for other trouble to make. We have to be vigilant until every last nominee by Donald Trump is confirmed.
Mm-hmm. And I want to thank you and Heritage for putting up that $1 million and fighting. I think it's going to pay off, and we'll know in a few hours. Folks, if you want to learn more about the Heritage Foundation, I strongly encourage you to do it. Go to heritage.org, heritage.org. This is one of the premier liberty conservative organizations in America, period. Kevin Roberts is doing a fantastic job as president of that organization. And Kevin, have a fantastic weekend, and God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, brother. It's always great being with you. Thanks for everything that you do.
Likewise. Take care of yourself. Where am I, Mr. Producer? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Please don't forget, Saturday there's no college football. There's no football at all. Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You know what? Just in case, go ahead and set your DVR. Sunday, there's a lot of football, and I know it. So definitely set your DVR. Watch it live if you can, but set your DVR, 8 p.m. Sunday. Both shows are fantastic shows. In fact, I'm going to send them to the Cable News Hall of Fame. I am. Saturday, Sunday, 2 killer shows. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. folks. The week is over. The weekend has begun, and what a damn week it's been. The man is back. The country's back. Don't forget, 8 p.m. tomorrow night, Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Sunday night, p.m. Eastern Time. Set your DVRs just in case. I want you to watch these shows. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel, and most of all, you. Most of all, you. That's right. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi and Smokey. Good night, Zelda and Gigi. Good night, Indy and Patton and Rory and Barney and Marty. We miss you enormously. Good night, Dad and Mom, Leo and Joe, and all of our other wonderful patriots.